2 weeks ago, police officer McFadden stopped 3 men and performed a stop and frisk.
A stop and frisk is when you are stopped by a police officer and they check the outside of the clothing if they suspect you of criminal behavior.
Now we have Emily on the scene to tell us more about the case.
Thanks, Mason. I'm standing in front of Zucker's store on Euclid, where the situation went down. Officer McFadden was observing 2 men who seemed suspicious. They walked in front of the store about a dozen times. In a later interview, McFadden said he became skeptical of the increasingly fishy situation and feared that the men were armed. He then approached them and told them he was a police officer. After a brief exchange of words, police officer McFadden patted down Terry and found a pistol in one of the coat pockets. He then ordered the men to go inside the store. Once they were inside, he patted down the other 2 men. This resulted in another discovery of a gun. As the men were escorted to the police station, Terry claims that Officer McFadden did not have probable cause and therefore the search was unconstitutional. Back to you, Mason Maria.
The real problem here is whether or not this was a search, and if it was, did Officer McFadden have probable cause? This particular case highlights our Fourth Amendment rights.
The Fourth Amendment rights protects us from unreasonable searches and seizures, along with the requirement of a warrant.
To figure this case out, the court is required to perform a balancing test, which is a process that contrasts the need to search against the level of intrusion.
After they performed this test, the court concluded that the search was reasonable and that the gun was seized from Terry was going to be used as evidence against him in trial.
We now have Emily Kraft here with us, who has found out how the Supreme Court justified this conclusion.
Thanks, Maria. Nice to see you guys again. So the first reasoning the Supreme Court gives us to justify why this search is reasonable is that it protects the safety of the police officers. If police officers weren't able to stop and frisk suspicious characters, they may be put at risk.
Right. If Officer McFadden hadn't stopped these men, then they had the potential to use their weapons, creating a dangerous environment for themselves and the people around them.
Exactly. Another justification that these searches protect for the destruction of evidence. That one's pretty self-explanatory. In addition, if Officer McFadden hadn't stepped into the situation, it most likely would have increased into a major crime. Not only this, but the only exterior of the clothing was searched. However, Justice Douglas of the Supreme Court disagrees with this decision. He states that there was no probable cause, which leads the search to be unconstitutional. He says that this goes against our personal liberty, and the court therefore has made a wrongful conclusion.
That's an interesting standpoint, but I think that these individuals were clearly going to rob the store if Officer McFadden hadn't intervened in time.
I completely agree with you, Maria. This act was barely intrusive because he merely removed and reached the weapons from their outermost pockets.
Precisely. There was nothing wrong with this search. He believed that the defendants were acting suspiciously, and all he did was act on said suspicion. If he hadn't, then a crime would probably have been committed. I mean, they had guns in their pockets. Obviously, they didn't have the best intentions.
But the question at hand is, did Officer McFadden have probable cause to search him in the first place? In my opinion, the level of intrusion was greater than the need to search by Officer McFadden.
Well, thanks, Emily, for your input and facts on the developing story. We will agree to disagree. See you next time. I'm Maria Mankin.
And I'm Mason Rose, signing off.
As they were escorted to police station, Terry... No! Thanks, Mason. I'm here in front